Good evening, good people of the snow. This is Ben Vandenbos from the Sawtooth Avalanche Center, and welcome to our third year of the Weekend Update series. We started this, like I said, 2 years ago. The idea behind this is not to replace our daily avalanche forecasts. The idea behind this is if maybe you're busy during the week, you're only able to get out on the weekends, or you don't have the time to keep track of the snowpack as we talk about it every day, you can use this as a framework to kind of help you set the forecast that you read in the morning into. So for example, say you've got a big ski plan for Saturday, you're not sure what you're doing and you haven't been out at all, but you want to get caught up and have some sort of idea, maybe what sort of options might be good options or not great options. You can tune into this and get a sense for what happened during the recent week, the sort of weather, avalanches that were observed, danger trends, and those sorts of things. And then the morning before you go out, you read that day's specific forecast. We get up early every day. We write those daily forecasts and we put those out, and those specifically address the day that you're going to be headed out. So that's the idea behind these. Our first forecast is going to be on Monday the 13th. I'll be putting that out by 7:30, probably a touch earlier. And that gives us a little background for the weekend update. So without any further ado, we're going to dive into it. This one's going to be a little bit different since it's the first of the year. We haven't started our daily forecast yet. So I'm going to spend a little time talking about the fall weather leading up to where we are now, what the snow looks like now, and what we might be expecting to see as we move forward from here. Here's a great photo of kind of what the fall's been like around here. This has kind of been the approach vehicle of choice, particularly since the roads were closed at the highway. And this is 2 days ago, yesterday, excuse me, photo I took in Alturas Creek, getting ready to hop on the bike and ride on a number of miles, just slightly snow-covered ice on the pavement. So gives you a little sense of what things look like out there. And hopefully maybe that was the last day that I had to do a bike approach, at least in 2021. Though I do love hopping on the old iron steed. So without further ado, let's hop into it. Oh, maybe a little bit of ado. All right, the fall weather. Well, in short, this fall started out, we kind of had some storms in early September, late September and early October, some smaller storms that left some remnant snow in the mountains. And then we got a big wallop of water, much of it falling in the form of rain down at lower elevations, right towards the end of October, the 25th and the 26th. And that was a pretty warm, wet storm. It seemed to bond quite well to the ground and to the snow that had fallen previously. And we had some pretty darn good skiing conditions out there. I suspect riding conditions would have been good if you hated your sled or your snow bike. But for the most part, we've been hearing mostly about people out on skis and out on snowboards. Unfortunately, after that big storm, it went pretty much high and dry, and that wasn't bad for a little bit. We had some sunny days like this one to go enjoy that powder, and then temperatures began to creep up, kind of a bizarre pattern for the late fall. Here's a photo I snapped about 10 days ago up on Morgan Ridge. Morgan Ridge is just a little bit east of Ketchum, sits above Trail Creek. And you can see kind of in the center bottom of that photo are some nice bright green grass starting to grow at the end of December at 8,000 feet. So that gives you a little bit of a sense of what the weather's been like. We had just really quite warm weather, a number of days setting record highs and record overnight lows, high lows, that is, not the cold overnight lows, but the kind where the temperature is warmer than it's ever been in that overnight period. And the result of that is that ambient air temperatures were so warm that we were actually melting a lot of snow, even on more shaded aspects. And on the sunny aspects, like this one here, that snow that fell was just cooked right down to the dirt. If you walk around the valley, if you go for a hike, or you have in the previous couple of weeks, that's pretty apparent to you. That sort of weather has created a pretty high degree of spatial variability within our snowpack. Like I said, slopes that are facing south have been cooked off basically up to at least 9,000 feet, 9,500 feet, even 10,000 feet in places. So all that snow that fell, those several inches of water that fell towards the end of October, just got completely burned back. However, on shaded aspects and on the margins, so if the south face is kind of facing you, and then as you go to either your left or your right, you get into these margins before you get to the north facing terrain. There you start to see some remnant snow, and then the place we're going to find the most snow is going to be on the shaded aspects on the north side of the compass. Then about a week ago, we started to see some really cold temperatures. Not record cold for this time of year, but significantly colder than those days where we were seeing highs in the valleys in the 60s, and it felt more like we were rolling into September or October than we were into December. Here's a photo of a pit that I dug yesterday after I got off my bike and did quite a bit of bushwhacking and dry-ish walking to get up to a place where there was actually a snowpack. This is about 8,500 feet on a north-facing slope. And you can see in the kind of those long excavated areas, I excavated those with my hand. Those are stacks of facets. And then those darker stripes are crusts that form during those periods of warm weather. So we had that initial snowfall, you get a little more snow on top, period of warm weather, and we put a crust on it. A little more snow on top, period of warm weather, and we put another crust on it. And that continued a couple of times. You can see a couple iterations of those crusts and facets in this snowpack. This is a pretty typical snowpack for the area right now, unfortunately. The main difference that we're seeing traveling from spot to spot is in snow depth. As you know, if you're down the Wood River Valley, there just isn't really much snow at all. You might find that there's closer to a foot of snow on these shaded aspects. As you head north up to the Galena Pass area, you get up to 2 feet, and then continuing north, you might see 2.5, even 3 feet in some of the wetter areas, Western Smokies and the Sawtooths. But the general snowpack structure is similar. We've got these crusts in the snowpack. We've got these relatively nasty faceted layers that formed above and below those crusts. Here's a photo that I snapped today that should give you a pretty good sense of what I'm talking about when I say spatial variability. This is shot from the top of Bald Mountain, looking over the Warm Springs Creek drainage towards the Baker Creek drainage. You can see this strange kind of almost zebra striped pattern of snow on one side of these ribs and bare ground on the other side of the ribs. And then in the background, you can see that the slopes that we're seeing have more snow than the ones in the foreground. That's because those slopes are a little bit higher in elevation. So if you climb, again, these slopes are facing roughly south between southwest and southeast. But as you climb, even those south-facing slopes have some snow left on them. The sun and the warm temperatures weren't quite enough to cook that. Where we're finding places where there is still snow on sunny aspects, that a lot of that snow is pretty well cooked on. You have these really firm, icy crusts, pretty challenging travel conditions, a little bit scary depending on the steepness of the slope you might choose to go out on. We've been finding a lot of even these kind of like water ice crusts on the surface, very slippery, hard to kick through. And then as you transition around towards more shaded aspects on the compass, towards the north side of the compass, you're going to find snowpacks that look more like the one I just showed you in that photo, where we've got crusts and facets and crusts and facets. So that gives you a rough sense, kind of the snowpack that we're looking at across our region. Obviously, it changes from spot to spot, but that's a pretty good description of the average snowpack that you might find. That brings us up to today, and then we're wondering what comes next. Well, as you've probably heard at this point, we're forecasted to see a pretty significant amount of snow in the next little bit. We've got what's become one of the more popular weather phrases that folks use, an atmospheric river that's taken a bead on our area for the next couple of days. We're expecting to see snowfall starting sometimes tomorrow morning, Saturday morning, and pretty high confidence that that's going to continue at least into Monday, late day Monday. And then there's a good chance that we've got a second storm, second set of moisture starting sometime Tuesday and into Wednesday. Obviously, at that point, we're 5 days out in the long range forecast. It's hard to predict weather that far out, but it's looking like we're going to see a pretty significant amount of moisture. As you look in this image here, this is through that first bit, through that Monday night period. And this is the official forecast from the Weather Service out of Pocatello at this point. Those colors, anytime you're getting into those red colors, where they're forecasting 18 plus inches, you get darker in the red, and we're talking about 2 feet, 2.5 feet, 3 feet of snow. And if you look real close, and you want to get really excited about snow, up in the upper left there, that image, you see a couple of those purple blips. When we're getting into the purple, we're into 4 feet of snow forecasted over this couple-day period. So this is it's a pretty significant storm. There's potential for variation in amount of snowfall. The direction the storm is going to come in initially will change throughout the storm. And as that pattern changes, we'll see initially more snow falling, probably in the Banner Summit, Western Smokies, maybe the Soldiers area. And then that swings around till it's coming out of the south, even southeast, which can be a really favorable flow for the Wood River Valley area. So this is a kind of an odd storm in that it looks like it might bring all of us quite a bit of snow. So that seems like a pretty good thing to me. But step back a minute, think about that snowpack I described. Think about how many times I use the word facet, and that might give you a little bit of pause. So what are we going to do about this? Well, this isn't really the time or the place to tell you what to do and what not to do, but there's one thing that I can tell you with a lot of confidence. Once we're seeing a bunch of snow piling up, you're not going to be finding me running off into places that look like this. Steep, exposed terrain with high consequences if anything goes wrong. That's not exactly what I'm thinking is going to be the best idea personally. How about this? Low angle powder skiing? That looks like maybe it's a little bit more like it. Best thing that we can do at this point when this snow starts to stack up is recognize that conditions will change rapidly. We're going to go from a snowpack like we have now, where you could go do just about anything you want to a snowpack where you're kind of listening to what the snowpack's telling you and not being afraid to act pretty conservatively, to step back significantly, and to be aware of the idea and the fact that these conditions will change rapidly, even during the day when you're out, particularly on later in the day on Saturday and through the day on Sunday as this thing really kicks up steam. Low angle riding, well, that doesn't seem like the worst thing in the world. Obviously, we've got a super shallow snowpack out there still. There's a lot of rocks, logs, stumps, everything else. Early season hazards definitely exist, and there's plenty of ways to get into trouble even if we're not in avalanche terrain. But this idea of stepping back, being willing to let Mother Nature tell you what she wants you to do and where she does and doesn't want you to be is going to be a pretty good idea. Pretty obvious signs of instability that we're going to be looking for. Number one, any sort of avalanche activity. It should be quite obvious because there just hasn't been any. So if you're seeing a pile of debris, that's a fresh pile of debris. If you're walking around and you're seeing cracks shooting out in front of your board or your skis or your sled, if you're feeling the slope collapse underneath you, those are obvious red flags that you've found yourself in a situation that you don't want to be in, and it's a great time to seek out safer terrain and terrain not exposed to avalanche hazard from above. That's what I got for you for now. Biggest thing that I think you need to keep in mind at this point is that it's early in the year and there are just a huge amount of unknowns. Even if you've been going out every day and you've been traveling to every mountain range you can, there's a lot of unknowns right now. There's a lot of things that we don't have the answer to and that we can't have the answer to. This storm is going to give us some answers and is going to indicate to us how sensitive of a snowpack this might be, and will give us some clues as to how long we'll be having to worry about this sort of a snowpack. But in the short term, best bet, take a big step back, watch the show, enjoy the fact that it's finally snowing around here, and remember that we got quite a long winter ahead of us and many more pow days like this one to enjoy. That's what I got for you. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to this. I hope that you find this is helpful. If you've got any questions or comments about this product, feel free to email us at the Avalanche Center. Our website or our email is info@sawtoothavalanche.com. You can email me. Mine's at ben@sawtoothavalanche.com. Watch yourself, watch your partners, make sure you have all your rescue gear when you're going out in the mountains and that everything that you have is working. Maybe spend the second half of your day when it gets too snowy to do a few beacon drills. Remind yourself of how to do these things, you and your partner, and just dial it back a bit and prepare for a good season ahead. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll be in touch, and let us know what you see out there, because nothing helps us build the puzzle more than getting a bunch of observations from everybody. Thank you.